Okay, in this piano tutorial we're going to look at parallel funk chords. This is a great harmony technique when you want to provide rhythm and groove from your comp voicings. They're great over dominant 7 chords. So here it is over G7. Here it is in C7, etc. I primarily use these over Mixolydian scales or Dorian scales. If you don't know those scales, what they are is a Mixolydian is just like a major scale with a flat 7, and a Dorian scale is the same but with a flat 3rd as well. So there's only one note difference between those two, and we'll discuss that as we look at the chords. So this is how I make it. I'll start with my root position chord. So let's start in C. Got my root position chord there, and then I just take this note down a tone. And that in itself is a great way to voice a 7 chord, because I don't really like them in root positions. If I was playing along with the blues, I wouldn't really be doing that. Much better to be doing this shape where you start with the root and drop that bottom a tone. So if I'm in F, if I'm in G, if I'm in A flat, you get the idea. So that's my starting shape for these parallel funk chords. But as you get to know them, you can start them however you like, really. But this is the pattern we'll look at. We start with that first shape, and then I'm moving up my Mixolydian scale, and I'm just taking that same shape, which is kind of like a second inversion chord shape, and I just take it up the scale. And that's the kind of effect. So if I wanted to make a riff out of that scale, okay, it obviously depends on the groove or the rhythm of the piece, but that's kind of the theory behind it. The other thing I like to add are these little grace notes, particularly on the middle note of the chord here. So check this out. And depending what key you're in, if I'm in D here, you might have to actually play that grace note. But you can see I like to slip off notes, because that's just a nice easy way to play it. And when you're grooving out, it's just a nice easy way to think rhythmically rather than worrying about, oh, my finger has to do that. So it's just a nice kind of rhythmic thing if you're just slipping off those grace notes. So let's look at it in a few different styles. We'll take it back to the piano sound, and I'll do a blues in F. So 12-bar blues in F. So kind of a shuffle groove with this one. Notice on the 4 chord, I made this third a minor third. And then it goes back to the major third. So that's because in this case a blues in F, we've got this B flat 7 harmony, and if I played the A there as well, it would really clash with that. See that ugly sound there? So that's why I change it, the middle note. So that's just a great way to add rhythm to your comping pattern there. Let's look at it in a funk progression. So let's look at I Wish by Stevie Wonder. And I could even harmonise that horn line that comes into I Wish at the end of the song. Second inversion shapes, just going through that E flat Dorian scale. And speaking of Stevie Wonder, Superstition. So whenever I don't have a horn section with me, I'll do this when it gets to the chorus. See those shapes there? Just those second inversion triads going down the E Dorian scale in that case. Alright, I'll show you in a jazz setting. This is a vamp I like to do at the start of Autumn Leaves, and I'll just vamp on the one key before the head starts. Notice I'm adding a few extra notes there to make it a little bit crunchier. They're essentially those second inversions. So that's an example of how I might use it in jazz. Also things like Moon Dance. Etc. You can even use it in pop. So I'll show you in Let It Be by the Beatles in C. See how it just... So in that case, I'm just kind of giving it a little bit of extra flavour on that on that C. Speaking of that, there's that Alicia Keys song, If I Ain't Got You, the one that goes... The very first little thing they do before they get to the verse is this little parallel chord. So it's just that second inversion shape there. So there's a couple of examples in pop contexts. Now this one here I don't use as much, but it's still kind of cool. I've been thinking in terms of a second inversion shape across the Mixolydian and Dorian scales there. But I can also think in a first inversion shape. So I'll show you a couple of examples here. So this is a funk in E. Guitarists love those kind of voicings. It doesn't sound as suitable on a keyboard, but sometimes, you know, when you've got a nice clav sound, that can be a kind of cool thing to be doing. Doing there is I'm just using that first inversion shape. Another classic example is Billie Jean, where we just use these first inversion shapes up the scale. Then I'm changing to that second inversion shape when I get to the C minor there. So there is that main concept of parallel funk chords. Basically all I'm doing is using that second inversion shape and running it up Mixolydian scales or Dorian scales if it's a minor kind of sound. And remembering the only difference between Mixolydian and Dorian is that third being major or minor. Or even using the first inversion shapes. Cool, so now you know what they are. try them out in all your repertoire, particularly that funk rock kind of stuff, particularly when you've got a dominant 7 chord and you want to give it a little bit of groove and rhythm to comp with. Hey, I hope you found that tip useful. I'm really appreciating the support, guys. I'm enjoying making these videos, and I've got heaps and heaps more ideas that I want to share with you. So thank you for supporting the channel, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos.